The Pascal Mystery, presented by
Steve Poitras,
Michelle Caruso,
and Aaron Bannon.
It was Passover. Jesus and his 12 apostles gathered. As they dined together, he told the 12 that one of them would soon betray him. One by one they questioned, "I'm not the one, am I, Lord?" Jesus explained that even though he knew he would die as the scriptures foretold, his betrayer's fate would be terrible. Far better for him if he had never been born.
Then Jesus took the bread and the wine and asked his Father to bless it. He broke the bread into pieces, giving it to his apostles, and said, "This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And then he took the cup of wine, sharing it with his apostles, and said, "This wine is a token of God's new covenant to save you, an agreement sealed with the blood I will pour out for you."
After the supper, Jesus and his disciples went to the Garden of Gethsemane. All of the disciples were asleep. Jesus went over to the rock and prayed. He knew that the time had come for him to suffer for the sins of the world. He prayed that he might not have to experience such suffering. He then noticed a tribe of Roman soldiers walking towards him. With the soldiers was Judas. Judas kissed Jesus on the cheek, and Jesus was taken away.
He's a blasphemer!
He's a blasphemer!
Crucify him!
Jesus was accused of blasphemy by the Jews, though Pontius Pilate did not find Jesus guilty, but the Jewish people wanted Jesus crucified. Jesus was condemned to death under the authority of Pontius Pilate.
The Roman soldiers give Jesus a crown of thorns to wear. The thorns immediately pierced into his head. Jesus was given the heavy cross.
Crucify him! Crucify him!
Take him
Crucify
away!
him! Jesus had to carry the cross to Calvary. The cross was heavy. Suddenly, Jesus fell for the first time. The Roman soldiers whipped him and yelled at him,
Get up, you blasphemer! During the journey to Calvary, Jesus sees his weeping mother. He tells her,
"Mother, do not weep for me. Instead, pray for me." Jesus could no longer carry the cross. The Roman soldiers went out to find a man and yelled,
You, help this man with the cross.
This man was Simon of Cyrene.
Jesus' face was filled with blood from the crown of thorns. A generous woman named Veronica knelt before him and wiped his face. The Roman soldiers saw him and moved her away from Jesus.
Get away from this blasphemer! Jesus could not withstand carrying the cross. He fell for the second time. The soldiers finally grabbed him and picked him up from the floor to continue.
Get up, you Jew. As Jesus was carrying the cross, he met the women of Jerusalem. They were weeping. Jesus told them,
Do not weep, but instead pray for me. Jesus was rapidly getting scourged by the soldiers. He suddenly fell for the third time. He was picked up from the ground and he carried the cross once again.
Jesus finally made it to Calvary. The soldiers stripped him from his clothing. Jesus was put on the cross. The soldiers nailed his hands and feet onto the cross.
The cross was slowly raised. After minutes on the cross, Jesus yelled, Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they are doing. Jesus died on the cross.
Shortly after his death on the cross, he was taken down. His body was wrapped in a white cloth and placed in a tomb. The tomb was covered with a big tomb rock. On the third day, Jesus rose to heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again to judge the living and the dead.